Welcome to the Wilderness Attitude Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Waddell. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope everybody's striving to better themselves and get out there and take the world by storm. And if not, then you can live vicariously through our series in Alaska. Last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been getting to know these men and women. It's just been amazing learning about Alaska, some little things here and there, learning about these people, learning about what makes them tick, what makes Alaska so great. And I really hope that you guys are enjoying this Alaska trip that we're on. Maybe if you're not going to make it to Alaska and hunt or go there to fish or whatever, maybe it's opened your eyes that, man, I need to do better here. I need to be better every day. Enjoy these podcasts. These men and women are great. Kick back, tune in, and enjoy. Welcome to Wilderness Attitude Podcast. This is Brandon, your host. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your evening to be with us. We're sitting down with someone tonight who I got to meet last year that is someone who I got to get in the woods a little bit with, but until after we were in the woods, I didn't realize really who I was trucking around the woods with. Let's just put it like that. I had no idea the background that Mark had in biology and in the woods and some of the stuff that he's done in his life and as a hunter and photographer that, let's just put it this way. I can't wait to get back in the woods with Mark, whether it's behind a camera or whether it's behind a weapon and we're hunting something to feed our families. I can't wait. Something you need to know is that Mark's impressions on the world and North American hunting and other wildlife publications, that I'm sure if you subscribe to any magazines that have wildlife hunting in them, you have seen pictures that he's taken. There's no doubt in my mind. Sometimes I don't think that people pay attention to who takes a photograph. You just flip through mags and you just kind of go through stuff and you look at stuff. I'm guilty. So I would say that when you're looking at pictures, whether it's National Geographic, Field and Stream, Bowhunter Mag, Fishing Mag, wherever, even on Instagram, things like that, pay attention to who's got their name at the bottom of that. Take some credit. Look at it. Pay attention to it because these guys work really hard. And so I hope that through this podcast with Mark that you'll be able to kind of close your eyes, vision what he's given you and what he goes through. I mean, it's hours, days, weeks to come up with a picture that you just glance at. So without further ado, I want to welcome Mark Raycroft to the podcast. Mark, how are you?
Good, Brandon. Thanks for all the love, man.
Oh, it's easy to give love to someone that I look at, who I got to meet. I mean, you're, in my eyes, anybody that can put a picture in Field and Stream is freaking famous, right? So to then actually get to meet you, shake your hand, and go hunt elk with you, right thereafter, and get to know you a little bit, sitting around the camp, cooking up some Alpine Air foods on it's my pleasure.
It's a good space. It's a good space.
It was a good space, wasn't it?
Always.
We weren't successful in our endeavor, but that's something that we learn as hunters, and when we meet people in the woods, that it's about making those cool relationships, getting to know people, and be in that moment like you're talking about, that space. Sometimes it isn't all about making the kill.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, both in hunting and photography or anything outdoors, right? It's just being in the moment, living for it.
That's a fact. And that's what you do. I mean, you're a wildlife photographer and biologist out of Ontario, Canada. But I mean, you spent 25 years plus photographing and filming and writing about wildlife. I mean, you've been featured around the world in so many different types of magazines and publications. I mean, the list goes on, but I mean, we can throw a few out there: National Geographic, Canadian Geographic, Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, Bugle. You talked to me about a little while ago. Ranger Rick, right? I mean, that's cool. I mean,
Sure,
that's just
they're all
cool
cool.
right there.
It brings
Yeah,
kids
Ranger
into it,
Rick is
right?
cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Any
we're
work that invites children into the outdoors, especially nowadays, bring it on. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. There's a gap missing there, right? There's a gap that we missed in hunters. Not every hunter passed down to another hunter. There's a gap there. There's stats that show that 1 million hunters quit hunting in the last few years, but we haven't picked up 1 million hunters to replace them. And we surely haven't picked up that many photographers either to go out and share it in the way that you see it as well.
Photography is growing because it's more accessible for people than it used to be. But the hunting aspect, with so many large urban areas, it is shifting. So for those of us that live in rural areas and have access to wilderness, it's important to keep youth involved and to bring them out and sit in the woods, go for a hike, spend 3 or 4 hours. And like I've said to many people, whether it's photographing or hunting of any sort, if you spend 3 or 4 hours in the woods, even walking around, but more so just sitting still, not moving, you'll see something awesome every time. Whether it's small or big, a bear comes by, or maybe an owl lands in the tree right at your shoulder. Things happen, right? And those kind of experiences will encourage youth to get into the wilderness and feel comfortable in it. That's another thing. If they don't get out there, they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel safe out there. And it's fine. It's just a matter of realizing that, right? We all do things every day we've got to live it up and enjoy the outdoors. And without taking kids by the hand and sharing that with our children, it doesn't happen. And so it's important. And photography does that too, right? They can pick up a camera and at even a younger age, right? That's a great way to introduce them. Put them, digital cameras are cheap enough now. Put one in their hand at 7 years old and let them have fun.
And I know you take your family on a lot of your trips, and you get to share these experiences with your wife and your children. And I mean, we can rewind a little bit on that. I mean, you've been married for 20 years. You have 2 children and a daughter and a son, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is important. Like you're saying, I mean, you got firsthand experience in this situation, and it means a lot to your kids. I mean, I'm trying to figure out a way to put a camera into some of my children's hands. So I'm like, I need you to go film this for me, because but they don't, but that, let's be honest. I mean, I want them to come out and produce me and take pictures that are amazing, but it takes time to get someone to see the eye through a lens, right? It takes time, but like you're saying, you take a young child, you put a camera in their hands, you let them just take pictures of leaves or what. It doesn't matter what they take pictures of, right?
Right. It engages them, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We're talking about engagement there, right? And then they'll begin to see that eye, and like you say, and then when they get old enough to where they can sit still, right? Then they can start to see some of the big or small animals and things that come out, and give them that opportunity just to shoot something in live, and right?
Absolutely.
So, so that kind of brings me to a question: what got you into photography? What was that moment, or who, or how that brought you to this place now?
So this podcast is how many minutes do you want? This could take a while. It's a good story. Could take a while.
Well, what? If it's a good story, we got all the time you want.
Yeah, I'll shorten it up. But what got me into it was, if we wind the clock way back, it was 10 years old, and my dad taking me deer hunting. And he'd take me into the woods at our family camp, family traditions, relatives there that I only saw maybe once or twice a year. And that bonding and sitting in the woods. And it started that way. And it made me, as a 10-year-old boy, feel like I was part of this group of men going out to get food for our families and stuff. I wasn't hunting, but I was joining my dad. I was invited into that. So that meant a lot to me as a young man. And my dad, he was pretty serious about what he was doing out there. So it was kind of funny. The first time out, he put me about 100 yards away over this knoll and, told me he'd be back in a few hours because he didn't want me to wreck his deer hunt while I was twitching around. And I guess I sat still enough because I had a deer come up to me about, it was probably 10 feet away, and I had to raise my hand because I didn't know if she was going to walk right into me. And she spooked off, and he didn't even see one that morning. So that was good. But
do you have proof of that? Did you take pictures of it happening?
Yeah, it's all up here. It's all up here. As a photographer, there are way more pictures up here than got caught in the camera. Always the case. We get lucky when the good ones get caught in the camera. Right. So went from there, and then I started working with the DNR when I was 15. I worked with them for 5 years, and I worked in the forestry, and I worked in fisheries. And then the guy who brought me in knew wildlife was where my heart was at. And that grew into that in my teens. I realized what I wanted to do and working in wilderness somehow. Right. And so I got working in the field of biology through the DNR, and then I went and got into the school of my choice, luckily with hard work, to study wildlife biology. And then when I was finishing my degree, I was doing whitetail deer research. And in the area I was doing a study. It was a pre-call study. So I was studying this deer herd, about their movement and what sex age groups of the herd and so on before this cull was to take place. And I met this professional photographer, and then the kind of light bulb just clicked on. I was like, wait a minute, I want to be a wildlife researcher, but I don't know what I'm going to get to research. That depends on budget and what's important at the time, which I respect that. But this guy was out there able to photograph whatever he wanted, assuming there was a market for it. And he asked me to show him where the big bucks were and what was going on. And I was into photography long before that, but I had no gear to make it work, right? I didn't have a telephoto lens, so any attempt was a joke. But I met him. We became friends. I showed him where the big bucks were, and he taught me about cameras and then taught me about the business. And from then, it was full throttle, man. I finished my degree, started building my portfolio, and it was perfect timing because I was a young man, and my grandfather gave me his old pickup truck, and I camped out of that and traveled and photographed everything I could. And big game animals have always just sparked me, and that's what I'm into. And so moose and caribou, elk, bears, whitetails. So went from there, and I just didn't look back. Did everything I could, and took years. It was a very interesting profession, really. But it took years to build it to the point where it was sustainable. But like I said, the timing was perfect because I didn't have a mortgage at that time. I didn't have a family, so I could make a go of it without a big amount of money. So, and some people helped along the way.
Let's talk about the adventures of the old pickup.
No, they're locked away. They're locked away.
No. We're cracking the safe.
You know what was good about this truck? I love this truck because it had one of those old aluminum caps, and I'd camp out of that, and he'd work hard all day, and if it rained at night, just the sound of the raindrops on the aluminum, that's a good story, my friend. We could stop there.
Yeah. Okay, no. Let's rewind.
Right.
Make, model, year, color. Come on.
Oh, that was it was an 82 Dodge Ram, single cab pickup, old school, one bench and an 8-foot box. And
stick?
No, sorry, man.
No,
it was
automatic.
Yeah, I got the easy road. Yeah. I like the stick. I like it in sports cars and stuff. I like the stick. The pickup didn't need it, but anyway. We don't live in Rocky Mountain country up there, so.
So I'm envisioning this, like you're saying, one of those tin roofed camper shells, right, where it's kind of corrugated, right?
Exactly. You got it.
They have the windows in it.
Yeah, sliding windows.
Yeah. Yeah, I could only imagine how noisy that thing could be at night, but I'm sure
only when it rained.
When it hailed, maybe, right?
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of that, thankfully. No? But those sliding windows, I had a German Shepherd at the time, so I got him halfway through university, and they had nice screens on them until he started coming with me. So the bugs at night, yeah, that was an issue. We had a few conversations about that, yeah. But the truck just made it totally mobile. So wherever I needed to be, wherever I needed to camp, I would follow where I need for the animals, and whatever time school or work at that time would permit, I would just take off in the truck and film, but that's being said, after university, this is what I did. So it was kind of a second home, right, on wheels. And you go for weeks at times, depends on the destination. So just go up into the North Woods. Yeah.
So you mentioned destination. Did your favorite place to capture images as a young man in the old Dodge change as you morph through your career, or is there still one spot that's your favorite place?
Well, I have many now, but there are,
of course.
Well, yeah, because I spend a lot of my fall out filming, so there's many places that I enjoy going. It started with moose in Algonquin Park, and that's a famous Canadian park that's known for all kinds of wildlife, and you can get off into the wilderness there with minimal effort and experience everything from wolves to bears, moose, of course. So that's where it began, because it was 2 or 3 hours from where I lived, and then it was maybe 3 hours from where I went to school. So it was reachable for a weekend trip whenever I could find time to get away. But then as I traveled more, I mean, I love everything from Alaska through Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, BC, Newfoundland, and I have lots of places in the States I travel. I'm in Colorado right now for this week. I'm in northern Alberta next week for 10 days. And it's hard. I mean, for the amount of traveling I've done and with my profession and all the years I've done it, I'd have to say that Alaska and the Yukon stole my heart. And that's the place I love most. And that's the place if I get up there for 3 weeks or a month, it just totally grounds me. And it's like you come out of there feeling totally healthy and healed, because so much of life now is a rush, whether it's communication on our phones, our emails, our families, our responsibilities every day. And to get into the field where you're just in the wilderness and you're camping, and then you're having, not every day, but every 2 or 3 days, you have some kind of animal experience that just is mind-blowing. And then you sit down in this magical place and look at the mountains and the sky. And so that's what I love most about what I do, is being in these locations, and in the far north is where I personally enjoy the most.
Right. Now you're in Denver right now. What are you doing in Denver right now?
I'm visiting a good friend and doing some filming, traveling around Colorado looking for mule deer and whitetails and elk, and I'm hoping to do some moose. Subspecies down here is one I don't get a lot up north, so it's something to put in the portfolio. So,
speaking of a good friend, it's our good friend, right? Mike Morrow.
Sure. Absolutely.
Which is an amazing person and friend of ours, which is how we met. Mm-hmm. And but we don't want to spend too much time on him.
Well, I can tell you, I met him in Alaska. I met him out on the tundra in Alaska. He and Missy were out there, and I had my son Andrew on that trip. And it's a good story because, when I'm filming in Alaska or the Yukon in the far north, and I'm camping out of the truck and we're doing these day hikes that can take us, we could be gone 10 miles that day with caribou or moose or something. I like to stay mobile. I don't personally, especially in those days, I didn't take the time to get back to camp to cook dinner. We just ate and went and did what we had to do the most efficient way possible to make use of the light in hopes of finding these animals and having a great experience, and then collecting the images or film from it. And I met Mike out there, and Andrew, my son, this was his first trip up there with me, and this was in Alaska. And so when we went to Alaska, we went through the big Fred Meyer's store in Anchorage, Andrew and I, and I'm like, what do you think you want to eat for the next 2 weeks? And we'll get it. Right. He puts all his stuff in a Rubbermaid tub, so we have everything there. And he's buying these canned foods he thinks are good. And I'm like, but I wasn't planning to cook, right? So we were eating out of the can, or eating peanut butter and jam, or a lot of granola, water, it's just mobile stuff. But when we get back to the camp, the joke was he'd have to eat a can of Chef Boyardee cold because it's just easy, and then we crash because we're exhausted, right? We've hiked all day. We've had this experience. We're getting up again tomorrow and doing it. And we're doing that every day we can, weather permitting. So the thing about Mike and Missy was that they pulled up we just met on this back road in the middle of nowhere and got talking because they were photographers too, and we hit it off. And Missy said to Andrew, "Do you want something to eat?" He's like, "What do you mean?" Well, she's making a burrito with hot chicken. He loved her. He didn't want to travel with me anymore. He's like, "This is possible?"
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, Dad, is Missy coming?
Yeah, exactly. Are we going to see them again tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see them again tonight, right? Anyway, so we all became great friends, and we saw each other many times over the days to follow, and it just started from there. So it's a good time.
I certainly didn't mean to dismiss him like it didn't matter, but
no,
thank you for sharing how you guys met. It's funny how the wilderness and the outdoors and our passions and different things bring people together. I don't know what best way to describe it. I mean, meeting people in the woods is genuine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel that if they're there and we have something in common already the minute they're there. And I like that. I like meeting people in the woods. The last guy, I'll tell you a quick story. The last guy I met in the woods is actually the helicopter pilot for Mercy Medical Center here.
Okay.
That's a good guy to know.
I would think so.
Saying,
sure.
Right? So sitting down talking to him about where some elk are and so a few things, and then finding out later that he actually found an elk from something that I'd talked to him about and somewhere we discussed. I'm hoping that he'll fly a little faster when I need him at some point, if he knows it's me, right? So, but there's got to be so where exactly is your favorite place to capture images?
It varies, it just, I love to be up in the tundra, up in the north.
But there's got to be one. Look, I'm going to narrow you down, Mark.
No, it's hard.
No. Deep, look, search deep. Close your eyes. Do whatever you got to do. Search deep and tell me. There's got to be that one spot that just centers you and puts you in that spot and the animals and the things you're trying to capture and who you are and your portfolio. There's a spot.
Sure. You want to know that spot?
Yeah, I want to know the spot. Well, don't give me the latitude and longitude because we don't want everybody to go there. But give me.
It's kind of hard to get to.
Describe it to me then. Tell me what I'm seeing. Tell me what I'm feeling. Tell me what I'm smelling.
All right. So there's a pit in the remote tundra along the Alaska Range that I've spent a lot of nights camping in. At the end of the days of hiking with animals. And I've done a couple trips up there with my son. I've done a trip up there with my daughter. I've done a trip up there with my wife. She would have come a lot more, but we had kids, of course, so it was hard at that time to fit them in. But they're growing up now and moving on that way, so we have a little more flexibility that I'm hoping to share more of these trips with her. And I've had many good friends come on this trip with me because I like to have one person with me. I like to share it because it's so amazing and magical to be up in the north in the tundra and it's late August, early September, so a lot more high pressure than rain. You get to see the mountains, you get to see the northern lights, the stars that'll blow your socks off.
Sounds awesome.
It is. So I love to bring someone along, and I need another set of eyes to look for animals. And also, I have absolutely no issue with grizzly bears, or anything like that. But having two people is a good thing out in the remote. Or if you just twist an ankle, you could be 8 miles out, step into something, twist an ankle. So having somebody along. But more importantly, I like to share it with people that I feel it's a life experience. So there is a place where it's kind of the focal point of that trip where I home base camp out of in this pit, and you can just see for miles around. And at night, some nights the caribou will come through, or a moose, or you'll get up in the morning and there's a grizz track in the mud by the truck. It's just, and then you spend the day within 10 miles of there just working and experiencing, eating blueberries. So all of that, that's, if I could spend all of my days there, I would not complain once.
I'm thinking about where you're talking about, and I'm thinking to myself, what's the actual special meaning to that spot? What's the special meaning there?
I guess for me, I just love animal interaction, and that's what's been my driving passion as a photographer ever since finishing biology and moving on into this field is interpreting animal behavior and interacting with animals and experiencing that is what I get the biggest thrill out of day in and day out. So this place facilitated a lot of that. You never knew whether you'd spend the day with 10 bull caribou or a couple of bull moose that would spend 4 or 5 times sparring that day in front of you, and just, you got to sit down and say, wow. And for somebody with a passion in wilderness, right, it really connects. And life's busy. And in this career, we those of us that do it professionally have to work really hard and market all the time, promote our stuff. And I love doing that because I love hearing the feedback. But it's a go because it's you never know how the profession is going to change. It's changed hugely in the past 25 years, and thankfully it still exists, and there's some magical new components about it because of digital, but it's not in some fields it's not as robust as it used to be. So we go hard and work hard at it, but when we're in the field collecting the images, everything comes down to that slower, more humane pace.
How long does it take you to get down to that pace? Once you disconnect and you get there and you kind of get in that moment, does it take you some time to come down to nature's pace? Right?
Yeah, always. Yeah, I do it often enough that it's not that long, 3 or 4 days for me. But I'll tell somebody, like, if you're signing up to come to Alaska with me and you say you've got a week, I said no, that's not enough. You give me at least 10 days. Yeah. I need at least 10 days, and you'll walk out of there feeling like a brand new human being, as far as just being grounded and just, wow, that was amazing. And, when I get back home, my wife's often commented when she hasn't come on the trips with me, whether it's Alaska, Yukon, or the Rockies, she's like, you need to do these because it just helps you for like the next couple of months. You're just, just I'm at peace more often, right? It's just a steady state that's more comfortable. More natural.
I can resonate with that.
I know you can. Yeah, I see that in you. And when we spend those days on the mountainside, hiking for elk with you, I totally got that you were about that vibe, and that meant a lot to you.
And it's something that I definitely need more of. And I was hiking up a mountain yesterday, and I kind of was thinking to myself that. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, let me just throw this out there. So yesterday I'm hiking up this mountain, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to hunt here anymore. I've been hunting here for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I want to explore. I want to adventure. I kind of thought to myself that next year I don't want to go to anywhere that I've already been. Because I need that sense of adventure. I need that sense of unknown. I need that sense of I don't know. I'm at loss of words, but I
think you summarized it.
Yeah. Okay.
I get that. So you've got your favorite place. You've hunted it for years. You know it like the back of your hand. But if I interpret what you're saying correctly, because I believe I'd feel the same way, as you go to a new place for adventure, and the more you do that, you'll come back, and your favorite base for your experiences of where this hunting's happened, you'll embrace it again. But you want to try something new, and there are other adventures out there. There are a lot of wilderness areas that, for whatever our goal is, are worth experiencing. To hike it, to hunt it, to photograph, all these things. And not to put age out there, but not getting any younger. We want to enjoy and live it up in a meaningful, respectful way, and have these experiences. And when we can fit it in, you go for it. People need to, and I think it gives not only a better appreciation for other areas, but it also creates more of an appreciation for our home base too when we come back.
Right.
So I think you're right on there.
I know that I mean, I kind of have a little bit of an agenda of things I want to talk about with you as far as your career and things, but I need to take a second and ask you about how, I'm sure listeners are wondering this. How do you leave for a month? How do you leave for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month and disconnect and leave the ones that you love and go pursue your passion? I mean, you mentioned that your wife's like, you got to go, like, because this feeds your soul, and when you come home, it serves us well.
Well,
Is that
she's the same.
is that your, yeah, is that your wife? Right. That's what I'm at. So
Yeah,
is that
I
your
was
wife,
really
or is
lucky.
that,
Yeah,
yeah,
it took me a while to find the right girl, and when we met, it just kind of she is a very much a nature soul, an adventurous soul, and she's a strong, independent woman. We love our time together, but we also respect when we do our own trips, and usually our own trips are because of other responsibilities, not lack of desire to share it, and
right,
I like to do a trip with the boys once a year, a couple of friends too. But with
right,
her, she knows it feeds my soul. This is who I am, right? This is why I do what I do, and why after 25 years I've been successful at it, because it's who I am. This is what
right.
nothing. It's my passion. So to stop me from doing that changes me from who I am. And there are many other people in this profession that I know very well who are very similar, and they have supportive partners, or they have partners that are able to share it with them. And I'm excited about that opportunity with our kids being older to do that more together. I'm also hoping I'll be able to share this with my kids again too. I hope that's not done. But what you're saying about leaving my loved ones, I've often been able to take one of them on the trip, right? Once the
Right.
kids
Yeah.
were old
Right.
enough to high step it when they needed to, and to hike the mountain and jump over deadfalls, and I didn't have to worry about picking them up or them getting out of the way. Um,
Right.
then they're ready to come, and so they came with me whenever they could as well. My son missed his first week of high school because he was in the far north with me, and lots of stories to be told. We might have to do more than one podcast. Um,
You're a series waiting to happen.
yeah, right.
I mean, you really are, because the vastness of what you've accomplished, and I mean, can you even tally the miles on your feet, or the not air miles that you've had in your career?
And I'm not tooting that horn. This is just what I love to do. This is why I do
No,
it.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
I
Okay.
absolutely am. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not trying to toot your horn, but it mind boggles me. Like, I mean, look, I did 212 miles hunting elk this year.
That's a lot.
Is that tooting my horn? No,
No, that's
because
awesome.
that's a lot of miles not to have an elk in your freezer. So that's not tooting nothing, right? So,
Sometimes you can do
but
3 miles and your elk's in your freezer. That's how it
yeah,
goes,
no,
right?
I
Yeah.
can do 300 yards last year with my son-in-law. We literally it was ridiculous. I mean, we did a 3-hour hunt, and that was from the time we called each other that we were going to go to the point in time where we were done with an elk hanging in my meat locker. Okay,
Wow.
so um, but you've done a lot of miles. You've done a lot in your career.
That's what I love to do.
Yeah, so therefore it's nothing, right? So
Yeah.
it's easy. It's that kind of thing. But to tally the idea and comprehend, you know, what you have done to accomplish what you give in your portfolio and what you've given, it's hard to relate, I think. Um, I just watched the Warren Miller Line of Descent film last night, and we're talking 2 hours of film, right?
Mhm.
And I know that when it comes to making that film, that it is much like your whole career. You spend hours, weeks, months. Okay, let's say months to produce minutes,
Mhm.
right? And
Sure.
hours to produce seconds. It's a lot. And so to have that supporting wife, to have that situation, to be able to share that with your family, to come back to the question I had about you, how does that all work? It's awesome that you have a wife in that scenario. It's awesome that you're given that opportunity, that your kids are willing to come through and be a part of it, whether they follow in your footsteps or not and hold a legacy or what.
Yeah, that's not happening. They're not there, but they like the experience. And as far as the time, I mean, it's good. It's where I want to be. And you're right, though. I mean, you shoot, in a fall, if I shoot 75,000 pictures in the fall, you got to take just the very best off the top of that, right? That's all that matters. That's what goes out to show. And nowadays, I mean, it wasn't like that pre-digital. Digital changed everything, so that opened up a lot of doors. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't imagine running 35 millimeter film through the processes to go, that sucks. And,
oh yeah,
that's good.
Just over the shoulder. Yeah, the loop was there on the slide table, and I had some close friends who enjoyed seeing my collection of discards. Yeah, absolutely. It was either good or it wasn't.
Was there anything to do with those discards? Could you have made, some eclectic art out of that shit?
No, when we used to, I don't know if you did it, but when I was a kid, we had hockey cards at school and we'd throw them against the wall, and the closest to the wall got to keep them. You maybe could do that with the slides, but other than that, they're little mini frisbees, so forget about it. They're done. Yeah, unfortunately. But it was a different world, right? Because back then, it was a roll of 36, which we thought was a big deal. It would, But now, if I was just saying to Mike this morning when we were out, if I have 36 pictures left on my card, I'm stressing. I better switch cards. If I have 100, I better switch cards. Digital's changed it. Back then with slides too, it was 50 cents every time you hit that shutter, right? Now you spend some money, even the equipment's not any more than it used to be for film equipment, and you hit that and there's no cost once you've got that memory card. So it changes the game, which is interesting and for the better in many ways.
So you think it all evens out versus the old 36 and the digital? I mean, you can't, look, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you were snapping 50 cents a shot,
right,
in a camera that cost you a body that was
expensive,
$1,100, $2,000 then,
something,
right? I mean, and now what's a body cost you?
They're only a little bit more now than they used to be for a pro body. Huh. Yeah. The thing about it now is it's worth somebody who's interested in photography. It's worth spending a little bit more to get the better equipment because you can shoot an infinite amount of images on it. It's whatever you want at the time available. Whereas before, and this is what kind of revolutionized the profession, was that bankroll needed to buy film. So if we're going on a trip, we're going for a month, how many rolls of film do you take? How much does that cost?
Right? And the weight of it.
So I'd go through
carrying all that.
Yeah, I had a mesh bag, and it would just be full of film canisters, right? And you got to carry it, and so it's a whole different world. But that's where, so those that were really had a trained eye, I'll say, at composition for photography, and therefore could sell it to publications and make a living at it, that talent was reinforced because those paychecks would allow them to buy more film and become even better, train their eye even more. That kept people perhaps from being professional who didn't take the time to train their eye or weren't just passionate about it because it would cost too much to shoot that much material to support a profession. Now that it's digital, it's superior as far as the product now than what film was. The eye, what you can do with a camera is mind-boggling compared to 20 years ago. It's amazing. But the thing is, you can shoot all you want. So it turns out it's just all now depends upon the eye for composition and animal behavior, right? You got to know.
Yeah.
What that animal
is that where your animal biology comes into play for you and your success?
No, my degree taught me about animals, about ecosystems, about the interaction of species, evolution, what all this falls into place to understand an ecosystem from the ground up. That's what the degree did. I was in classrooms and labs for that. I wasn't in the field. My summer jobs got me in the field, And then starting wildlife biology wildlife photography and messing up, right? I saw the images in the magazines I was fond of, what I wanted to emulate myself. And I'd see that caribou or that moose or that whitetail and get busted and gone and gone. And a lot of us knowing where to go. So on my trip to the far north this year, I took a longtime friend of mine who's been a hunter his whole life, but had never been on a wildlife trip like this. We went to Newfoundland. We did a moose hunt together. It was a trip of a lifetime for him. So we went up north for a couple of weeks. He had so many encounters with moose and caribou and Dall sheep. He was like, he couldn't believe how much animal behavior he learned just by observing these animals on these trips. So there's a tremendous amount of overlap between wildlife photography and hunting, and as far as respecting, understanding animal behavior, knowing where to be at the right place at the right time, what they're going to do, how to predict it, how to call them, that kind of stuff. So on this trip was why I bring up this story. It was an interesting comment he made to me after the trip. Is he never was able to watch the animals do what animals do, because when the moose came out, the bull came out and he shot the bull. Right? Which was awesome. He had meat for his family for the year. But on this trip with me, he was observing, and he got to see that bull do everything from tend a cow to lip curl to thrash a shrubbery to make a wallow, to run off other moose. So he was learning the animal behavior, right? And he said that just was amazing to him and gave him a whole new perspective to when he's in the field hunting, because now he understands these animals at a much, not necessarily a deeper level, but just really understands the animal behavior far more than he ever has before. So that's a big part of being successful at photography, is knowing, because as far as marketability, iconic picture of a big 12-point or 6x6 whitetail or a caribou or whatever the animal may be will sell. But what will sell, or is of equal or even more interest, is behavior. So, this morning I got lucky and had this whitetail buck tending a doe, running backlit, breath coming out, with his head low, right, trotting after her. Right. And it was just a beautiful scene to photograph. And that will sell better as an image than just the buck standing in the field, because he's trotting
Absolutely.
after her, right?
Yeah, because it's not just Vogue, right? It's like, I'm in my gig, right? Like he's focused. You can see it. You can feel it.
So anybody who loves whitetails, they can feel that image. They can feel the mood of what was happening there, right?
And
so
that's got to take time. That's got to take time, right?
Sure.
Or is it just happens as circumstance? I mean, a little bit of both.
You look for it. The more experience you have, you look for it, because that creates a more compelling image to tell a story, to engage people, wherever they're coming from. If they have any interest in this wildlife, it engages them more because it tells them a story. There's a lot more going on in the image. So in what I do, it's just the experience to look for it whenever you can find it, because it increases the appeal.
So I want to talk about that Field and Stream photo that I saw, right? Because
sure. That's a good story.
I don't think that there was ever an image that I've seen in my life in a magazine. I was gosh, where was I at? I think that I was at my pre-op visit for getting my hip done, and I saw this image in Field and Stream, open the opening cover, and there it was. I'll describe what I remember. So I opened that page and I looked at it, and the first thing I see, obviously, is this big bull elk. And of course, I look at it and I'm thinking, his rack is huge. If I recall, he was an 8x8, but I remember his rack being very dark, very perfect, palmated some towards the back, long main beam. But I remember looking at his body, and it was, he was huge. And then the next thing I noticed there was some cows in front of him, right? But what I noticed was the depth perception of the cows versus the bull. And I remember it being this burnt timber, but yet with new growth, in this amazing mountainous background with the fog or the low clouds being in there, and some changes in the colors from where the picture was taken to the back, and but it was almost a dark image to me, like eerie, but alive, and I may sound corny, but so elky.
Sure.
It was just elky,
right?
And so I look at that and I give it a moment and I really evaluate it, and I look at the picture and I scroll down to what they wrote about how the timing of your presence and where you were at with the perfect lens. And if it wasn't for this lens and this technology that you had taken and used and found a way to embody this image, that it would have never been possible.
Right.
You gave credit to your craft, but and your experience of being where you were, but you also gave credit to the lens and the that ability. It just seemed to me like you, and I didn't even know you yet, but when I read that, I thought, wow, like he was in the right place at the right time, which comes with photography, which comes with hunting, which comes with wildlife experiences, right?
Right.
But at the same time,
that luck factor.
Right. But at the same time, you gave credit due to the fact that if it wasn't for this lens and this ability, you wouldn't have been able to capture that moment.
Yeah, that was the first year I used that lens. That's why it changed the game.
Right. And that's a humble approach in a magazine that expects the best, right? And that's, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of which, I want to excerpt what you said to describe that image. We're putting it in galleries on metal prints and stuff now, and you know how you can sometimes put those video displays underneath. If I could have you summarize it like that, that's awesome. Because you didn't even have it in front of you, right? So
we have no. That's from memory.
Yeah,
and I don't think that I've looked at that image. I probably haven't looked at that image in, I don't know, maybe 9 months.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's here. Just like you said about taking pictures, you have more up here than you could ever put on film. Absolutely. That you could ever put in the public eye. And I mean, I have a lot of those too, right? Of course. There's all sorts of things. But that photograph, I think that when I think of that picture, I think that is the ultimate elk hunt. That's the ultimate place that I could ever be. I strive someday to be where you were. It may not be the exact same place. It may not be the exact same elk. It may not be the same thing. But somewhere in my life, I want to be right there.
It means a lot to me that I was able to create an image that was kind of this heavenly place for you to be, in as far as how you view elkdom, the elk woods.
Elkdom. Yeah, that's awesome.
Elkdom, that means a lot to me that you would feel that way about the image. So thanks, man. There was a lot of elements came together to make that happen, and luck is always a part of it. And so when I get an image like that, and that one in particular, I was out there for 2 weeks filming the elk rut, and I remember walking out of the bush after getting that picture, hiking back and thinking, damn, that was amazing. That was, we're good this trip. And when that happens,
we're out.
Well, and he was a magnificent bull, and to be able to find him and get in that scenario and so that was a zoom telephoto lens. It was the first one that would allow me to be in one place and zoom in and get close on an animal, or zoom out and get a scene without moving myself and disturbing the animals, right? So they could move through, and I zoomed back, and just luckily it was wide enough angle to get the whole harem in coming forward. So there was a lot of good fortune that fell into place. And whenever there's an image that I get super excited about, there are always a lot of elements that have to fall into place, luck being one, to make that possible. But when people feel the way they do about it, like you do, it really, it means a lot to me that I've spent that time out there, and not that I need it to be in lights, but to know that it touched people. And, it's a place that you would love to be, envision being. It means a lot. So thanks for being so detailed about it.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass either. I'm not trying to be like,
I'm sitting firmly here. It's all good.
It was awesome. So I'm going to ask you a question and give me a good response. Not that you haven't, but have you ever had any close calls with the things that you photographed? Have you ever had that, that life death experience?
There have been a few, but it's just due to the amount of time in the field. Things happen, you have moments, and that's part of life, right? No matter what we're doing, things happen that can shock us or be less than ideal circumstances. But in the field, thankfully, it hasn't been often. I've had a close encounter with a bull moose, as expected over the years. And I've worked with, probably well over 100 or 200 different bull moose. But so it happens statistically. There's a chance of that. I've been bluffed by a couple of bears, but I've worked with so many bears, I knew it was a bluff. So really not too many really scary experiences. I had one with a moose, and he walked me quite a ways, but my feet were willing to carry me as he walked. I was able to run, and my lungs were burning. It was about half a mile to get back to where I needed to be, and he just kept on trucking after that. Yeah, not too many. I've had elk. Yeah, you got to get out of their way. When the rut's on, one animal chases another, and you just happen to be unintentionally in between because they turn fast. So you've got to get out of the way, get behind some trees. That's exciting. That's part of the fun, part of the thrill, no matter where it may happen, whether it's in Colorado, BC, Alberta. So there've been a few encounters, but nothing that's ever caused me an injury or sidelined me, thankfully, because I'm cautious. And here's the bonus of telephoto lenses. It gives me a little bit of reach, and I do my best to keep the animals comfortable, so they behave naturally, and I get the images I want when I'm photographing. And that keeps me at a distance where I don't get any dents in my rear end.
Now, tell me, there was one time that you were up, I think you were with Mike, and you guys were up in Colorado filming some elk. Maybe it wasn't there, but you were telling me in camp about this time that you had these elk, that there's certain elk that have certain names where you go and you film, whether it was in Canada or Colorado or wherever, where there's certain elk that you don't get close to, that you don't pressure, that they take extra precaution against because they're mean or something.
Yeah, well, you get to know.
Right?
So, yeah, I've photographed all through the Rockies from Colorado to northern Alberta for elk all over the place, wherever I can find elk that, will let me into their world so I can film them. And as far as naming them, we do that out of like a fond affection. They get some, because of what they look like, how they behave, and why we do that as photographers or family members is I can tell Pilly that I saw this bear again or this elk again, and she knows what I'm talking about based on images. Yeah. Or Mike, who's been in the field with me, he knows that magnificent 70-inch bull moose that we stumbled on last year that we called whatever. I found him again. So we name them for that reason. Right. And you're absolutely right. All these animals have different personalities, and some of them are a little more worked up than others, and you get to know that. And that's why filming big game, I love it. And it's a dance with them, it's a dance to get close enough. It's a challenge to move in a way that they don't feel threatened and spook or to
Right.
hide in a way in a blind on whitetails and cover your scent and rattle them in and that excitement, just like hunting. There's the preparation and planning that allow you to get in with these animals, but they're also the individual animals. And some of them, a bull elk and rut, he's all business. He's there for one
Yeah.
reason. And
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
So some of the,
he either wants to screw you or kill you, right? I mean, that's all there is to it.
and there are those, you approach them carefully and you can gauge by their mannerisms, what their personality is like, or you hear from somebody who bumped into an animal and had a little sneaker time
And got
down the
chased
hillside,
across the river.
something like that. But that's it's rare, but there are definitely those animals you've got to keep an eye on, or just aren't worth bothering with in those rare situations where you can actually get that close. And if they're right in the peak of rut, you got to be aware of that. It's just common sense, right? They're a big animal.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and with any craft, right, whether it's anything you do in the wilderness, no matter what it is you're doing out there, you got to have some common sense. You got to have some respect for what's happening out there because it's its own world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think, what do you think is what gives you the wilderness attitude, or what helps you have the right attitude, or what does it take for you to be in that moment in the wilderness and have the right attitude to do what you do, photographing animals?
I think walking away from each of the magical experiences that happens with persistence in the field is the motivator that keeps me trying to stay in shape and to keep my senses about me, physically stay in shape enough to manage it, because it's what feeds my soul. So if I couldn't hike with caribou, I have to be able to hike with caribou. I hope to stay healthy for decades to come and keep my knees intact and be able to do this. So what my attitude is, keeping my life centered around the ability to continue to enjoy what feeds my soul and what I get the most out of life. And wilderness is where that's at, whether it's just smelling the Labrador tea on the tundra. I love to get that when I first get there. I get it in my hands. And the fresh air, it's just amazing. It's just, and then there's a caribou over there. I mean, I want to keep doing that. So the wilderness attitude that I have is whatever I need to do to keep me out there, because there's nowhere I'd rather be.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot that comes with that. I mean, you got your physical, your mental, right? Your equipment, your marriage, there's a lot that embodies what we do to get into the wilderness so that we can be there, right? So we can be there. And then returning back to the world is also another step. It goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
So you do a lot to prepare to get there. What are your changes coming back into reality, or not reality? I mean, you're in reality when you're there, right?
But I mean, that's the reality. World, right? Sure.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. And it's a balance in life, with all relationships, with the professional side, with the family side, all of it has to be balanced, and in a way that the people around you feel love and you're able to do what you need to do, and they understand that. Coming back is a lot like going out there. It takes me 3 or 4 days to forget sometimes longer, to forget what day of the week it is once I get out there. Coming back, it might take me 3 or 4 days to realize it's Wednesday, right?
Right.
So it's a gradual transition both ways. And, the people around me get that. They know my head's still out there with the moose, even though I'm back home, right? Because I've got images I'm starting to edit so there's an understanding there that I'm grateful for the people around me. And it's a transition both ways, I believe. We talked about that elk picture that you had in Field and Stream, and you'd mentioned to me that it was a top seller, right? And sure. Just FYI listeners, you can go to markraycroft.com. It'll be in the thing, in our stuff. You can click on it.
You can go check it out. But what is one of your favorite images that you've taken that nobody liked but you? You know?
Before you go ahead, and before I answer that, markraycroft.com is my website and will continue to be the domain. Has been the website for the 10 or 12 years past, but that website's going dark in a couple of weeks and done. We're totally revamping it. It's in the process right now so that it will be automated. And I get a lot of comments on Instagram or messages from people who see images like that. My old website didn't facilitate any way for people to easily pick it up.
Gotcha.
The new website, it's all e-commerce and people can order the print. And I'm not saying it as a big promo here. I'm just really excited about getting into this century and having a website with my work on it where people who are moved by it can order the print, the canvas, or the metal that moment, and it's on its way.
Look, that's changed. What this has all been about. That's what this has all been about for 25 years.
It's
right?
part of it, yeah. Sharing that, right?
Well, I mean, Absolutely. Not all of it, but that's sharing it. Yeah,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
For those that feel it, I love to share it. Yeah. For sure. So thanks for bringing that up.
I will have that picture of that elk and them cows in my house this year.
Awesome.
That is one of the most amazing pictures I've ever seen.
You should see it on metal. It was good in the magazine, but you should see it on metal.
I will have it on metal. Yeah. If you say that's where I should go, then that's where we'll go.
That's at 2017. Metal's where it's at.
Yeah, you know that you're right. I've seen pictures on metal, and it has a power, right? It has this energy to it. You can put it, not meaning disrespect, but you can put a quasi good photo on metal, and it's better. But you put an outstanding picture with the type of equipment you use, and you put that on metal, and you can translate that over. It's got to be.
It's all, yeah. It's
got to be amazing.
I never had enlargements in my place, and now that I've done metal, I've changed the studio, and I've got these up, and they're light. And what the difference is, it's HD. And I had a friend of mine come in who, he's not into photography. He's just a good buddy. Our kids grew up together. And I had these new metal prints up, and he walked in, he was looking around, and he had to buy one as a friend too. But he was like, they looked like, his interpretation was they were looking at a TV, a flat screen HD or 4K, kind of that depth and that color, that vibrance. So it really revolutionized things. And they're such a durable medium to hang and easy to hang, easy to ship.
Right. Yeah.
Compared to framing it and all the print stuff that used to be.
What you do is amazing, and where the level that you're at is so far above a lot of people that I follow and a lot of people that I've watched and whatnot, who think that they're just, everything they got is amazing. And but when it comes to my listeners and it comes to starting at a ground level, or maybe sparking that passion, what would you tell the listeners as far as where they could start? Where do they start? I mean, a lot of people want to do stuff, but as a photographer, like, and who you are, what would you tell a listener where to start?
Well, it's easier than it's ever been because, people don't have to buy film. When it comes to the photography stuff, I mean, you could back it up and say, let's just start by going out into the woods and enjoying what's going on. But it's easy enough to carry a camera along and capture what strikes a person's eye. Where to start? It's a matter of researching what camera best suits the person, what lens, and budget involved. For anybody who's at all serious about it, it's all relatively affordable now compared to what it used to be. And then it's a matter of just training their eye, right? If they're wanting to do videos, watch the shows that mean something to them and think about how they filmed that, what happened with that animal and how they captured it that way. And then try again. And
try again.
And it will come.
Try again.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's the same with the still photography. I had times where something failed, it didn't work, but you get back in the saddle, you try again. And the more times that happens, the better the person will become at it, right? And to train the eye. So it's the same thing, still photography, whether it's looking at a magazine like National Geographic or Field and Stream, or looking on Instagram and finding those that do the kind of work that they'd love to emulate, and study it and think about the lights, think about what's happening with the animal. How did they get there? Where did they go? All these things factor into it. You know, it's just like on your hunt. So if you want to go, or on our hunt, if you want to go hunt a mature bull elk, where are you going to do that? You got to think about that. You don't necessarily just go out the back door. How do you do it? Where do you do it? How do you plan? What equipment you need? How do you affect your life schedule to do it? It's no different in any of these adventures in the wilderness. So if you're carrying a camera, it's the same thing. What do I need? How much time? Where's the best place to go for what I want to see? You know, so people are, you know, whatever they're moved by. Are you moved by wanting to see a polar bear? You want to see a grizzly bear? You know, or do you want to see a whole bunch of species? Where do you? The internet is a resource that was unavailable 25 or 30 years ago. It takes little time now with the right search to find where to go and the equipment. So it is out there. It's doable, and it's you know, for anybody who has the right drive, it's affordable, and go for it and have fun, and every time you'll get better.
So the bottom line is it doesn't really matter whether you're holding an iPhone or you got a good camera body and a lens, or, I mean, it does matter to a point.
Hold
right?
on.
But,
pick that up again. Let me see that. Is that a telephoto device on your phone?
That is a phone scope.
Yeah. What's going on there? Are you trying to take over my business? That looks like a telephoto.
So for $70 or so, I can buy an adapter to my spotting scope and click this on there.
Got it.
And I can take pictures off of my phone.
Okay. There you go. So that being said, yeah, good luck with that strategy. But it will get you the visual. It will get you the image. But the phones do great video and great photos at the right distance. You can't get zoom in, but they're amazing now. So big animals, that's a whole different game, right? Because you do need a telephoto. But for a lot of photography, a kid walking through the woods, there's a lot of cool things they can get without a big telephoto lens, right? So that's good you brought that up.
I mean, I love taking pictures of the wildlife, and I like doing what I do, but you know, I realize my place in this profession, and I'm going to leave it up to you and Mike and other quality people to go acquire those for me. But I'm going to take pictures of my moments and my stuff.
As you should.
Right? And I mean, I know it's here, but it's so cool to share. It's so cool to share. Whether it's just, like you say, with your wife when you get home, or your children, or your friends, or a little bit on Instagram or Facebook. It's cool to share these moments that a lot of people don't even get out of a cubicle to even understand exist. To my listeners, you know, it's like if you got a feel for this and you got an eye for it, even if you don't have an eye for it, if you got a passion for it, you just got to go for it, right? Go out and buy a body. Go out and buy what you can get that's affordable for you in your budget, and go give it your best. And like you said, try and try and try again, right? Because there's going to be a moment where if you're doing it for the right passion and the right reasons, that it's going to serve you the way you need, right?
As with anything in life. Yeah.
That's right. Whether it's 25 years in this industry or 6 months as a podcaster, right? I love what I do.
Awesome.
We got passion in what we do. And that's why we're here tonight with each other, trying to explain what that embodies, right? And so to see more of what Mark has, tell us how it works and how somebody can order some of your pictures. And I'm not throwing this out there to listeners to make you money or do whatever, but I'm telling you, if you'll go look at some of what Mark has done and take a moment and slow down and look at some of these images and be present in that, you're going to feel an amazing passion that you have given to people. And I only speak that from experience.
So it's still markraycroft.com is what the site will be. And the visuals on that will be so much better than on the current site. So with my current trips, it'll probably be the second week of December, I'd say. It's ready to go. Hopefully sooner, with the people I have helping me on that. The other thing is I just came out with a new moose book that I did with a publisher that's across North America. It covers moose from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast. And as a biologist, I wrote it all with lots of cool stories, and as far as experiences to really help bring people into moose country. A lot of visuals. It's 160 pages, 140 images, and is a crazy good price at $20. And I'm not saying it just to pitch it, but I really, really am happy with this book. It's probably the best body piece of work I've done in the 25 years. So it came out September 1st. It's on Amazon. It can be found ordered or found in any bookstore, online or in person. And the publisher that I worked with did a phenomenal job on it. And so I'm very proud of it, and it is selling really well. And if people want to get to know me and what I've done, that summarizes the moose part of my portfolio awesomely. And I am very happy with it. In the meantime, the social media stuff is easy. I post on there all the time and love engaging with people and sharing that way. And it's just Mark Raycroft Wild Photo on Instagram. So I'm easy to find that way as well. And then, so on Mark Raycroft Wild Photo, at the bottom of my description, of course, is the website, markraycroft.com. And that'll switch over in a few weeks, and all my contact information and all that's there. But it will be automated, that new site too. So super up to date.
So to any listener out there that wants to buy me that elk picture,
oh, I see,
on metal, it'll be available in time to ship to me for Christmas.
Absolutely. There you go.
I mean, I know I got some awesome listeners, so maybe they can do a GoFundMe account to buy me a picture to put in my living room, right? Or right here.
Right there.
I'll tell you what, I'll hang it right here. Yeah. I'll hang it right there. How's that?
That's awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Mark, no, thank you. Thank you for being on the show, and I appreciate how humble you are in your work. That seems to be a common thread through Wilderness Attitudes podcasts. The people that we have on are very humble. They're very proud. They are masters at their craft. They're masters at who they are. They're masters in a lot of ways that are genuine and real. And that's what we embody here at Wilderness Attitude. And I really appreciate the time I got to spend with you last year, and the time this evening, and the possible time tomorrow. And I'm hoping that I'll get a good invite next year to do a little hunting with you like you're doing next week. So
look forward to some fun. Appreciate you having me on. It was good chat.
Mark, we'll see you again soon. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to Wilderness Attitude. Once again, go check out Mark. His pictures are absolutely amazing, even on Instagram, and that's not even the quality that you deserve. And go to his website, and you'll be astonished by what he's got to offer you. And I know that by the time his website comes up, you'll still be able to get some prints in for your loved ones, and maybe other people you care about that deserve to feel the passion of the wilderness and the attitude that Mark's embodied. So thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I sure hope you're enjoying them. These series on Alaska have been great. I appreciate every one of you as a listener. I hope you guys are enjoying what we're doing. I don't get a lot of feedback, so I need you listeners to go out there. I need you to blow me up here a little bit. I need you to blow up my email. I need you to blow up reviews, iTunes, Podbean, our website, whatever. Get a hold of me and tell me if we're 2 thumbs up or if we suck, because we're going to continue to do these these segments of areas and places and people and different things in the wilderness and the outdoors, and we want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you want. This podcast is for you, the listener. It's for you to enjoy when you have the time, and it's for us to empower you, give you information, give you, adventures and stories, these men and women who live in the spirit of the wilderness, no matter what they're doing. So hit me, would you? Hit me with your best shot. I want to know what's going on out there. This is Brandon Waddell, your host of Wilderness Attitude. Thanks for tuning in.